We are live, and you're listening to a little bit of music that I was cooking up today, just for some other purposes. So you'll never hear it like that again. Hopefully, it goes where it's going and does what it's supposed to do. This is the Not a Podcast Show live stream. I am your host, Sean Ongley, and today's guest is a new friend, I guess. Hopefully, we're friends by the end of this. And she was introduced to me by Forrest Mommy. The thing was that we both grew up in the same church, and that was the connection point. So I figure we might as well get that elephant out of the room at the beginning. And but it's not really going to be about that. I think she has an interesting spirituality, perhaps as a result, like myself, of that. She's kind of more on that libertarian side of things, I believe, with Twitter. And so that's really all I know about her right now. And we're going to get into it. But I'm going to remind you to please follow and subscribe to my profiles. We're here on Twitter right now and YouTube. If you do not follow, you do not subscribe there, get her done. And you can go to my website, which is link in bio. I hear that the algo takes you down when you promote your own website. So just find it. And I practice value for value. So I'll always have this live stream, or at least some large amount of content. Everything I do basically is free content. That's just how I operate. So if I put it out there, then I hope somebody finds value and then gives me a tip without me having to take my top off or something like that for it, which is the new trend for 40-year-old men these days. Not really. That's it for me and my promotion. You can check out all of that stuff and help me out, boost me out, because all I'm doing is running an honest business. And I would love your support. And today's guest is waiting patiently for me to wrap up, hopefully retweeting the feed. Zora.
Hi.
I got you on the vape.
You caught me. Yeah, thanks for having me.
We got somebody in the chat already. I appreciate anybody that joins the chat. It's nice to have people there.
Yeah.
Robert, nice to meet you too. So how's it going, Zora? How's your day?
It's been a little weird today, but I'm okay. I'm just I was like venting about it a little bit, but it's just the person I'm staying with is a close friend of mine. I was in a band with him when I was younger and when I was in my 20s, but he actually met me when I was a teenager and I was going to a Scientology school.
Aha.
And we used to
go on. Is out.
Yeah, we used to go on our lunch breaks over to his pizza restaurant. And he was a guitarist, so.
I see you have a Telecaster up to the left of you.
Yeah, that one's mine. He made that for me, so that was a gift from him. So I have one guitar I bought for myself, my acoustic, my Baby Taylor, or Big Baby Taylor. That one's cool. But he made me 2 of these Telecasters, which is awesome. Yeah, I just need to learn how to play better.
I think I had a Telecaster when I was like 16 or 17. Big time gift, if I recall, or I paid for it. I can't remember. There's gift guitars I paid for. And really, I didn't keep playing guitar after age like 24. I actually have one again, just as a studio instrument, so I can come up with something once in a while. But I love playing music. So how long have you been playing music?
Well, I sing, so I don't really play music. I'm pretty bad at the guitar. Okay. I can play some songs, like simple stuff, but I'm really each song I have to like learn for. It takes me like 24 hours at least to be able to get through a song, or a day and a half or so to practice it, so I can actually make it through a whole song playing it at the same time. But singing is what I like to do the most. So
cool.
But I just kind of do it for fun now because I tried performing and I just realized at some point there's an urge in me to perform, but I'm not a performer I don't think so. So
it's hard to think of music as entirely without performance.
Mm-hmm.
Even electronic music producers will become DJs and then they'll mix their own work into it.
Yeah.
It's just hard to just make it just in a computer or something and not share it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Like, it's definitely for being shared with people, and I just realized there were times where I'd, be with friends at, like, around, like, a fire or something like that, playing, hearing them play, like, whatever they wanted in the moment, and then singing along with them more improvisationally was, like, the best kind of experiences I've had with singing. So later I realized it's really the singing I like. It's not actually because being on stage, there's an excitement to it, but it's not actually that fun. And then when you get off for me, and then and I would drink a little bit too. So that was kind of, that's never actually a good move. Um, and then, but
to a
when I would
point,
yeah, exactly. 1
'cause
or 2 is fine, but then you just get sloppy and that's no good. And then
same with live streaming.
yeah, and then, I
It's
would
no
get off stage and I'd often have, like, comments, from just the few this bar was pretty slow, but every once in a while, there would be a couple people in there, because mostly it was, like, an empty bar and we'd just go there and practice, really. But
yeah,
every once in a while, a crowd would show up, but mostly it would just be 1 or 2 people, and if I happened to do, a cover and somebody didn't like the way I did it, they were gonna tell me all about why I did it wrong and what I should have
right,
done, and I got a lot of that, like, "You're a cute girl, you should dance, you should, like, play a triangle or a tambourine or something,"
right.
and "What? No."
Well, not
I mean, I
not
get the
always bad
dancing
advice. It's
now.
just in context.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it's just like, well, obviously, that's not really my thing, so.
um, so you mentioned the Scientology school. What was that about? You were in a special school for like private school?
Yeah, my mom, thought that was important, so I grew up in Florida until I was, like, 8, and we moved away because my parents split up. She got in a relationship with a guy that was originally from Hawaii. He tried to live here with us, like, from I was, like, 7, he moved here to be with us, and then, he couldn't stand it, and he wanted to go back to Hawaii, so we all went with him. Instead of them breaking up, my mom wanted to try moving to Hawaii, so we did that. And they have a small org there, a small church, in Hawaii, and
We
so
call them orgs for
yeah,
the people at home.
the organization, yeah.
Right. It's an organization.
Exactly, yeah, and it's like I guess it sounds better than it's just convenient for them to be in between a business and a church, like, let's call it something else, you know? Um,
Yeah, I think some of that language got started before it was a religion. So it kind of carried over. It's weird. And plus it's kind of like an Air Force religion. It's like a Navy
it's
religion.
military based, yeah,
Yeah.
the organizational structure is a military,
Right.
based thing, which is
Yeah.
yeah, it is funny, but I think it's whatever's convenient, because they're all about, like, promoting, and coming off, uh, as marketable, sort of, so it's sort of it'd be like, you'd hear people talk culture well, it's not really a religion when they're trying to get somebody interested. It's like it's whatever it needs to be. So, things like using the
Right.
language differently, which, like, he would use, L. Ron Hubbard used a lot of normal English words. They're in the dictionary, but they're not
They're
common
weirdly applied.
use, and they're weirdly applied.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're applied differently than most people use them. So, it's
Just
it's just
adding
convenient.
ness. Like it's just adding ness to things. Like
Ness,
is
yeah,
you're
havingness.
yeah, yeah, you're having this. I was thinking about
Yeah.
that today. Like I was thinking about that just earlier, like going out to eat after work when I was a teenager. My mom would be like, well, you just made money, you worked hard, your having this is up.
Yeah.
Is
It's funny too, like, I would hear people say, like, "My stats are down on that,"
my parents still
statistics
say that stuff.
"My statistics are down on that," but they
Yeah.
say, "My stats are down,"
My
but you're
stats.
like, "You're not keeping a graph for
Who's
that, what are you
yeah.
talking about?"
What stats are you
Like, I can understand it
what
if
are
you're
these data
doing
points?
I could understand if you really you're going after a goal so much that you're, writing it down and you're keeping track of all your milestones or whatever. But they would just use it as if, I don't know,
Yeah.
everything, all the concepts just kind of sneak their way into every part of your life until you're just speaking that way all the time and everything's a part of it, you know?
I think being a kid with that situation is really strange because you have this kind of secret. They tend to say, like, don't be too eager to share your religion. People don't understand it. So you're told this a lot. And then you are having this different experience at home. And I was in public school. So I'm actually glad that my mom had the sense, my folks both had the sense not to get that deep. Um, they wanted us to have a normal life. And but
That's
it
good.
but it's a dual life. You have this group that speaks in a completely different way than everyone else. And most churches, there's a little bit of that. In every church, there's a little bit of that. But when
Yeah.
it's so different that it's you're just like kind of compartmentalized from the beginning of your life.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like I first when we were here in Florida, my mom always would work for the schools. So it was like she couldn't afford us to have tuition for these private schools are expensive. They're like, you know, Montessori school, similar cost level, I believe. And yeah, so she had us in those schools when we were little because she just felt that was the best thing, and, like, that was her what she was willing to sacrifice was she would work there so that we could go there. And, of course, they wouldn't pay her very much, which I didn't know that as a kid. I just all I knew is, like, my mom's always at my school, and it wasn't that abnormal. There was some other parents working too. So we were like the crew kids sort of in that way or you know, staff kids or whatever. So it's like you're raised about around a bunch of kind of wealthy children. And then you have this little group of, you know, the people who work at the school, all their kids are like the poor kids. So
Yeah.
that was the group I was in.
Yeah.
But there wasn't much like definite, you know, there wasn't a lot of culturally they don't treat you badly because you don't have a lot of money necessarily, not in school situations, not as a child. They don't treat you bad because you're poor when you're
I
a
mean,
kid.
yeah, what were the kids like? What was the social feeling and atmosphere like? And the curriculum for that matter.
Well, it's glorified babysitting is all they do in those schools, you know. They use the state education, so they use the same standard of uh, as well, at least into middle school and high school. For elementary, it's just like glorified babysitting, you know, like we'd learn, um, you know, it's simple arithmetic and alphabet and all that kind of stuff. And I barely remember any lessons from when I was a kid. I just remember, you know, we were on the playground probably most of the time. I know we were in class, but I just don't remember it when I was little. When I went to Hawaii, I went to public school there for 5 years because there wasn't any Scientology school there. And then when we came back to Florida, I was 13 at that point, and then she had me. My mom enrolled me in another school, and she started working for them. And so when I was 16, I got a job at a chiropractic clinic, which was owned by a Scientologist, but I got a job there, a part-time. And that's when I everything socially had collapsed there for me. Like I wasn't ever popular anyway with people. I mean, I've never been that kind of person. Kind of quiet on the quiet side in group settings, especially. And but everything had gotten really bad because of, you know, KRs, they write knowledge reports on you.
Mm.
So there was a lot of reports being written on me at this one time where I started like went to a party and all the kids were drinking. We all had beers. It was literally like a some teenage party where we all like sipped on one beer for the whole night. You know, like
Hmm.
it was not any wild thing. But because guilt, self-policing is so much a part of the culture. So the kids they feel overwhelmed with guilt because they've sipped a beer and then, but somehow I become the target. Maybe because I didn't write a report.
Mm.
Maybe because I didn't join in on ratting myself out, that I looked like the most guilty party or something, but I just felt like they were really going after me for things that all the kids were doing. But also, when you become a target and that's the environment, people can really, there were false reports written on me and all this stuff. So, and the more I thought about it, I was a teenager, wasn't putting it together all very fast or anything, but I started to think about it and I was like, my name, like, I have a folder and there's these reports about me in there. So it doesn't matter if it's false. That goes in my folder forever. Like, that's part of my record with them. So people can just make up whatever they want, and then that's going to be attached to my name on in print for my whole life. Like, that's how they get to judge me, based on like these things that people decide to attack me with or whatever.
So
And
it seems that implies then that like a certain social order that if you don't click into, and the structure likes to reinforce that. Like, if you don't
yeah,
click into it, the structure reinforces that the social pressure.
it's
So,
very easy to target somebody and get them out of Scientology if you want to, if you're really
or
motivated to.
you cave them in, make them
Right.
buckle into it even deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people, I think the goal tends to be to have you buckle rather than have you spin out. But it sounds like you spun out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you?
I started to notice that I wasn't doing well there socially. And I was just like, I hate everyone here anyway. Like, I hate these kids. Like, they turned on me. They like became kind of hostile. And so they were like name calling and just didn't like me and stuff. So um so that, with that feeling of being I don't know, they didn't like me, and I decided, like, I don't like this place anyway. And I looked around at, like, our apartment was like really small. We were in a one bedroom apartment, my mom and I at the time. She had a really crappy car. And I just noticed, since I suddenly was making money, I started to notice, like, wow, our life is shit. Like, she doesn't make any money doing this. And it didn't occur to me before that they were giving her such a low paycheck so that it would even out for my tuition. So I just told my mom, like, I'm working, I'll just start working full time. And you're going to quit this stupid job because I don't like this school anyway. They don't like me, and I'll just get my GED, and then you can have a real job. You can get a real job that pays you. And that did improve things. At least she was able to get a better job. And I got my GED. And then I went to college when I was 24. Like, I tried it much later on. But
Okay,
when I
interesting.
waited until I didn't have to report my parents' taxes.
So you got a GED, you got a job,
Yeah.
and you just started. You entered the workforce at 16.
Yeah. Yeah. That was way better for me. I was way
Good.
more interested in making money, and I found it way more interesting. So, but just like customer service, I've never been very ambitious, but always took my stupid little job super seriously. So I always
That's
had
good.
good work ethic, but no ambition.
I wasn't that way. I was a lot more. I always never took my job seriously enough. I did get into um I did get myself promoted at my second job, actually, so I shouldn't be so hard on myself. From dish room to line cook.
Hey, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Robert says,
Moving up is, yeah, that is.
even in public schools, you either fall into a clique or you're an outcast.
Yeah.
True, Robert. I
I didn't do
was
well in public school either, as socially. Yeah.
okay. So you did end up in public school.
I just went to public school for that time in Hawaii, for the five
Oh, got
years
you.
in Hawaii, and
Got
that
you.
wasn't good because they don't they don't like newcomers, and they don't like people that aren't from the island. So
Yeah, I've heard this.
yeah, so it was pretty hostile. And Yeah, and then even my brother had trouble because somebody, you know, physically attacked him at school one day, and that was when he decided to leave Hawaii, go back to Florida, and he became, he committed his life to the church. So, and I think he did that so that he could feel safe somewhere, and so he could succeed somewhere. Because in Hawaii, we weren't gonna succeed there. It was pretty obvious. Like
Hmm.
nobody, it's in school. It gave you this feeling like, yeah, nothing's gonna work out here. 'Cause
Hmm.
they could barely talk to you, even, like, the other kids that were also not islanders, like, you didn't wanna team up because you almost knew that would make it worse. So, like, non-islanders or white people, we would avoid each other too, just to not look, like, weird.
Ah, that's kind of yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Uh,
was
yeah, yeah. So you got it coming from all kinds of directions. I mean, so I entered public school, finished public school on time. I don't know, nothing was too crazy, but I guess I want to give some credit to this organization because my grades improved 3 times in my life. First, when I did the study course between 7th and 8th grade during the
Mhm.
summer,
Yeah.
and that's through the church. Then the second time when I was like 16 and 15, 16, and I started doing TRs with somebody.
Yeah, TRs
We
are
we
good.
moved to Tucson where there was no org. So there was a small community there that would, I don't know, hang out, do mission. They try to start a mission, but none of that ever happened. But there was a small community my folks had there. And in fact, they worked for a Scientology owned employer uh, all that time between about like age 5 and 16 or 17 for me. And anyway, so the second time was doing TRs, and actually things improved a little bit for me. And then the third time was when I started smoking weed. And that was when in college. And that,
Right on.
and that actually was the most revolutionary thing.
Really? That's cool. It improved your grades.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Good.
It changed my behavior. It's for the better in those regards. Like I became voracious about books. I stopped watching TV all the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My grades got better and I became like an A student. And in high school, I was a D student, barely got through it.
Okay.
Um, so, but just the fact that I was compartmental, I didn't fall into a clique. I was more of an outcast. I did kind of fall into a clique, but not tightly. A lot of the people that I hung out with were burnouts and doing drugs, and I was not. And my mother tried to like protect that from me without me losing the friends, and she did that effectively. She convinced them not to let me get high. Somehow they did
Hey,
that.
that's kinda cool. She's
Yeah.
pretty
Little did
clever.
she know that it might have helped. Um,
That's pretty cool. Good for her.
yeah, I guess. I mean, I think I would prefer not like if I had a son or daughter, I would prefer that they not be getting high as teenagers because I know that that affects the brain so much. Because and
Yeah.
but
I wouldn't want them to have the idea that they need to depend on something to feel good or something like
let
that,
them
you
learn
know.
that later.
Exactly, they'll figure that out. I mean, everybody needs something, but it is better, and brain development is more the major issue there. Yeah.
Yeah, I even see it now. Like 20 somethings, I see on the dance floor all the time, blowing coke up their nose. I still go out dancing. Like I still
Oh, good for you.
have a good time.
Cool.
Um, yeah, I'm still hanging out with 20 somethings. I'm not growing up.
Well, at least you're having fun. I don't do enough of that, honestly.
Yeah,
I do
everyone
miss
can.
dancing. That's the one thing about partying that I miss, honestly, because I love dancing.
Yeah, where do you live?
Florida.
What part?
Oh, like near, Tampa area, Tampa Bay.
Tampa's fun. Go to the castle.
Yeah,
Just
the castle is fun.
oh, you've been there? Good, good.
Yeah, I have pictures with the senator behind me. The
The
senator is
senator?
the guy that he's kinda well known there for, wearing women's lingerie in the club. He just wear a little teddy, like a little G-string, and then he'll wear, like, a little top on, and they call him the senator, but he's just some guy.
That's funny. Good, yeah. So
And
you
the
have a good
Peter
scene.
Pan, have you ever met Peter Pan? Or have
No.
you ever seen Peter Pan? He's also like a Florida, mythological no, he's a legend, sort of in the castle, sort of well, he's like cosplay, I guess. He lives somewhat as Peter Pan, so he wears that outfit. I saw him in a thrift store once. I was like, "Oh," I looked at, like, his website, and it's he wants to not grow up and all that. So and he wears the
I don't
costume.
wanna be Peter Pan.
I don't like that. I don't like Peter Pan as a character. I mean, yeah, not like that.
I'm growing up, but I just don't have kids, so I'm still free to do this stuff. And even when
Yeah.
I do, I'm gonna find the way to make it possible. Like, I'm not just gonna I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
think the idea is fine. He just went a little far with wearing the costume all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, let 'em get weird. I'm all for it. Um, I'm in Philly, and it's a
Oh, cool.
much more, it's a different scene than Tampa, it's different, but
I bet, yeah.
we have amazing DJs. You got New York City right there. There's plenty
Better
of fun to be
food,
had. A lot of great music, a lot of great artists.
I
And
bet.
every I've the second I've heard about food, I have not been, like, that excited about food here. I'm not a foodie anyway. S
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not really either, but I've tried I tried it a bunch of restaurants around, Tampa, especially this one area was, like, up and coming, like, maybe 8, 10 years ago, and I remember going to a lot of restaurants and, like, trying to kinda get into that, and, I either don't have the sensibility for it or I lack the interest or something, but I got the feeling that Florida doesn't really have that good of food, and whenever I talk to people from up north, they're like, "Yeah, the options aren't really that great."
In Tampa. You know what? Tampa's, got this funny thing with burritos. I'm from California. That really is the best place for burritos in the world is California. I
I've heard
honestly,
that always, yeah.
I mean, not even Mexico. We're getting the reason we have great burritos is because of Mexico. But the specific cuisine of the burrito is truly popular and perfected in California. That's my opinion. S-
Perfected there, that makes perfect sense, yeah.
So
They love it.
yeah, so I go to Tampa. I'm excited to have a burrito because I don't. There's a deli on every corner in Philly. There's a place to get a hoagie everywhere.
Okay,
Slice of pizza, but it's
yeah.
hard to find a place I can quickly go in and get a burrito. And so I'm in Tampa. I'm thinking, oh, I'll find a burrito here. I go to a
You would
place.
think, yeah.
It says California burrito. I'm like, okay, great. I look at it. What makes it a California burrito? French fries inside the burrito.
What?
I
It's
and
weird.
I was upset, and I
Yeah, I would be
actually
upset.
left that place and went to another place, drove another mile.
I love french fries, and that would disappoint me.
I
I'd be like,
wouldn't
"Ugh, that sounds gross in my burrito."
totally. And the second place, I was like, "You're doing the same thing. You know that we don't do this in California, right?" I just ordered a vegetarian burrito. It was all good. Um,
I think I think people sometimes just use California to be like, "This is, like, the goofy thing on the menu, so we're just gonna call it California."
s-
Like,
I think they really believe that this is what they do in California.
they probably do.
All right, so you left the church. Um, did you become spiritual, atheist, agnostic? What kind of took you out? What changed your path?
Well, when I was 13, it was all the problems at school and realizing that my mom needed a better job and that she should quit. And like convincing her to quit that job was, I felt good about that. I felt like that was the right thing to do. And then I just started drifting away from it because I was like, these people don't like me. So why should I try to force so it definitely started off with this like social aspect where I was being excluded. I felt like I was being excluded. So it was actually more sad for me. I was kind of like, they don't, I wanted them to like me, but it wasn't working out. And the technology just kept getting used against me. And so, I can even tell my mom this is like the problem. I was having individual problems with people where they were, what I would say, abusing that information or whatever. They were abusing this system that is created by writing reports on each other and all this stuff. The way that they approach each other on a social level was being used deliberately because people just didn't want me, to be accepted there. And so I kind of realized, well, if it's not for me, then I should probably do my own thing. But I also would get into conversations with people like about homosexuality was one thing that bothered me because I had had gay friends that were, the sons and daughters of, Scientologist parents. And with with family members, it'd be like a conversation where they'd be like, well, they're aberrated.
Aberrated.
Yeah. And I could agree that, like, okay, so they're not the norm, it's not the majority sexuality. So I get that you could say they're abnormal in that sense.
No, but aberrated.
But aberrated is a negative. Yeah.
It means like exactly what it sounds like, but toward your consciousness. It's like you have a disrupted, traumatized, you got engrams.
Yeah. 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 And there was also this thing about right, they're aberrated, and there's the tone scale, the emotional tone scale. Some of my family was really
I had that hanging on my wall.
Yeah, I loved it, honestly.
It's something, it's like the emojis.
Yeah, they are like emojis.
Honest to God, I think that is they picked up intelligence out of Scientology, and then they applied those to emojis, the tone scale. Look it up, Google it, people.
There's that one anime, and I almost don't know what it's called, but it has those little black like dust. They're little sprites or something. They're called sprites or something, and they're little sort of dust balls or something. They look like emotional tone scale things.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, but I liked the scale too. But one thing that always bothered me was they would point to 1.1 and unexpressed resentment, right? I think that's what it is. And
I don't remember the numbers.
I don't remember exactly, but I think
that sounds like one of them.
I think that's what it is, because 1.1 is below anger. So anger would be superior to that. But unexpressed resentment, I guess, is like, but anyway, it was more like they would say, well, they're 1.1. No, covert hostility. That's what it is.
Covert hostility. That's right.
Which is worse than unexpressed resentment. Anyway, but it's
that wasn't that the guy got a nail behind his back?
I think so. I think he was hiding. Yeah, he was hiding a weapon behind his back. And yeah, so they would say these people are covertly hostile. And that wasn't my experience with gay people. I hadn't had that experience. I hadn't had any of them betray me or do anything that I would consider hostile to me. And I didn't pick up on that, and I didn't agree with it. And then I started thinking, I was like, but their money is as good as anyone else's. Like, if you take a gay person off the street and you want them to do courses, you can get them to do courses, or like it would be okay so what is the restriction? And I couldn't actually figure out where L. Ron Hubbard said. He just said it's aberrated. And so presumably you're saying basically it can be rehabilitated in a sense, because
that's what the idea is.
Yeah, you're saying you have engrams, and then it'd be like, oh, it's because in a past life you were the other sex. So that's why you're just confused. You got confused between lifetimes. And so you're still attracted to, And so all that seemed fishy to me. That was a point of like philosophical, or logic that I couldn't get around, was like, I don't understand why culturally it's okay to kind of say these people are lower or peg them at a specific tone level, which doesn't totally make sense. Like, why would all gay people be covertly hostile? I don't really. But anyway, so I just didn't like that because it seemed very like arbitrarily mean to me. And then I noticed the materialism more in it, and like that the social hierarchy depended a lot on like keeping up with the Joneses. Like if you had nice stuff and you were one of the rich families, all those kids would get, not all those kids, but a lot of the kids that were well off that I went to school with, they ended up getting going to LA to become a star, and then they got hooked on junk or whatever it was. Like they got started doing heroin or something, and then they got sent to rehab. They got sent back to Florida so that they could do Narconon, and then they would go back to the church, and they needed auditing. And I'm like, they got they went somewhere and got fucked up because they couldn't get a job as an actor. Like, and it just seemed like they were so worshipped in a way. I was jealous of these rich kids because they would come back and it'd be all like everybody's sympathetic to them. Whereas I'm like, well, I didn't do that, like I didn't make a dumb decision to go do this and then give up on my dream, and then my parents just pay for me to get clean, and then they pay for a bunch of auditing, and then I get patted on the back for it. Like that would never be the case in my life where I would get catered to such a level. So I found these kids to be weak, and I didn't respect it. I lost respect for the whole thing. I was like, this is a bunch of bullshit. It's just a bunch of narcissistic, it's power. So one kid that I was friends with, he actually made a really good point about this. He was studying yoga and he was really interested in chakras at the time. But he said Scientologists are super interested in the power chakra. So everything's about power, gaining power over others. And I was like, that's true. I mean, and they'll openly tell you that they want you to gain your superpowers back,
Right.
And it's like, I don't even necessarily think that's wrong, but it gets applied culturally. Like there's so many very superficial people in Scientology who think they are enlightened. They think they're like super spiritual people, but they're
let me
really
just
not. They're
let me
shallow.
just try to take some of the focus off Scientology, because it's not that important to your life anymore. And and I'm interested in where you're at now. Also, I find this to be the case everywhere. There's cultish thinking and behavior everywhere, and I get pissed off with it. Anytime I try to join a group, and I would say that having the opportunity to spin out of a cult is a blessing for me, because it's put me on a path to where I don't accept just truth handed down. Like I appreciate the texts of great religions, but I find that I can take pieces and learn and apply in a mosaic and a quilt, if you will, of philosophy. And I have friends who are far more limited. They're either Christian or Buddhist or Muslim, and they find that limited scope works just fine for them. They get all the truth they need. For me, maybe this life is the destiny of being raised in that. And by the way, when you think about it, what is that number in America? When we're about the same age. When we were growing up, it was about 250 million people in this country. And I think the total number of people in the church was like 100 to 200,000, something like that. So it's about 1%, not even that, 0.1% of the population. What is it? Let's do some straight math here. 200. I don't remember, and I don't know what the roles really were, but I remember watching Going Clear, and they were talking about how the number of people involved in the '80s kind of peaked, and then by now it's like tens of thousands.
Okay.
But anyway, the point is, we had a very, very small window in the big scope of time that
Yeah.
our purpose on this earth, or our timeline, or our karma, or I don't know what you believe yet. I'm not sure how
Mhm.
you look at these things yet.
I don't know either. Yeah. I'm still figuring it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I hold a lot of beliefs at the same time. Like, I think, I can consider that a lot of things could be true, you know? I kind of realized that well, I read the Tao at some point, the
Hmm.
Tao Te Ching, and I still have that, I still read it sometimes. That impacted me a lot, and I thought of myself as a Buddhist for a long time, and
Buddhism is a great sidestep out of Scientology. It's like, okay, we got
it's
reincarnation here.
yeah,
We
it's
got,
kind of it's familiar a little bit,
yeah.
like, some of the concepts are definitely he plucked a lot of stuff from Eastern philosophy that,
Hmm.
and because, Scientology doesn't focus on God, they leave room for God, that's what I like to say,
Hmm.
which I think is kind of a funny it's almost insulting in a way, but, but it is funny that they just kinda leave, like, they're like, "You do whatever you want with that part, who
You know
cares?"
what's funny? My parents became Unitarians, and
Okay.
it's the exact same way. They leave room for God, and they kind of apologize for referring to God
I
in the
know.
in
It
the things in the Unitarian services.
That's wild to me. I mean, just in the sense of, like, if you even consider the concept of God, but then you're going, "Well, I mean, I guess it's alright." Like, it's, I don't know
If
how to explain my faith now, but I do believe in God now. I had a personal experience. It's so personal that it's there's no logic to it. It's just a feeling in my heart, like, that I know I realized something, loves me and understands me, and I
Mhm.
needed that. And
Right.
so I actually think there's I can at the same time understand that, like, my belief is my own, uh, and it's a utility, and I can see it as a utility that me believing in God helps me. I see that as a utility, but I don't think that that degrades my belief, because I understand that I have the choice of believing in God. Like, I do think but I did have a personal experience where I can't deny it at this point. So there is that where it's like I would feel weird about trying to pretend like I didn't have that understanding.
Yeah. There's all kinds of reasons to, and it has to be experiential for me, but there's all kinds of reasons to believe in God, some kind of God, um, some kind of ultimate singularity, uh, being.
Yeah.
Um, but the nature of that, I'm still arguing with myself, within myself and with others about what that is. I
Sure.
don't know. And that's, as a mystic, I don't care. It's more about the mystery. I view myself, Tao Te Ching is a great mystic text. Um, it's more about the not knowing that you
Mhm. The
discover.
emptiness. I was very comfortable with, like, hollow bamboo.
Ah, yeah.
That
Yeah.
kind of concept of, like, letting things like that I was I felt more like an empty vessel for most of my life because of that metaphor really of bamboo, uh, impacted me a lot, and, so I thought of myself as an atheist for some time, but it was more just that I had no belief and I didn't but the problem was is I didn't apply any meaning to life for, like, a long time. I didn't have any uh, stability in thinking that there was a reason to be alive or that there was any point to what anything was going on because I had rejected Scientology's idea that they could clear the planet and fix everything. So I had given up Scientology and I conceptually gave that up like, well, you can't save the planet. That's ridiculous. So uh I more lean towards like a nihilism almost of, but it was like a Zen Buddhist leaning nihilism, you know.
Mhm.
I really just had nothing to put there. That was the problem.
So, I mean, I'm curious about if you're able to describe that experience. How are you able to feel it?
Yeah. Well, I was going through it was a very difficult time for me a couple years ago, actually. So this is like recent for me too.
You know, a lot of us, I feel like there was something that happened these last few years. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we all know what happened, but there's something
Yeah.
behind. There's some energy. I had my first experience with Christ during this period,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's
I'm.
kind of what happened to me. It was I do think that what happened with shutdowns and all that, and even prior to that, shook people's reality to such an extent. And then you're also forced to change. It wasn't, things just changed suddenly, everything was different. And
Mhm.
I think it made a lot of people reflect on what their future will be. And I think it had a lot of good unintended consequence in that it made a lot of people reflect on like, what is the meaning of life and how do I want to spend the rest of my life? Do I want to
Mhm.
keep doing this kind of thing? Or, and that was what happened to me was well, my boyfriend of 4.5 years had moved out and I had waited 6 months. We broke up. And then he was like, well, I wasn't going to just kick him out. So I gave him time to move out. So I had 6 months theoretically to become comfortable with this idea of him leaving. But after you spend years with somebody and they're always there, when he left, it was still way harder than even though I thought I was like almost arrogant about it. I thought I was like, oh, it'll be fine. I won't even feel it because I've already figured it, I already know he's leaving. It'll be fine. So I went into a depression. I didn't even really notice how deep it was. And my health, there was a problem with my health at the time. And now I realize that part of my spiritual experience was spurred by this unhealthy physical state I was in. So I was actually having a delusion of sorts, initiated by this health problem, but I didn't realize that at the time. So at the time, I was like convinced that the experience I was having was real, or that
What
it was
what experience?
uh,
Real.
this Jesus like
Okay.
experience that I
Okay.
had. So I suddenly like I felt much lighter and everything like lightened up, like my heart and my mind. There was like this weight lifted off. And I started to think about Jesus' sacrifice. That was what popped like open this feeling was I was thinking about Jesus' sacrifice and I was trying to understand it for myself. So what was he really trying to say? What was this really about? And I started also thinking about how people used to sacrifice and use magic to request from the gods blessings and things that they needed to survive. And then Jesus's sacrifice is also to replace that, to say, you don't have to do that. It's already been done. And uh, I could expand on that, but unfortunately, I'm very uneducated on Christianity, so it's all intuitive. Everything that I kind of I've read Genesis, like I'm not studied in the Bible at all. That there's a Christian side of my family, so everything is kind of just peripheral that I've learned about it. But yeah,
Um, I had a very different set of experiences over the years, so I'm not even going to try to get into it. Um,
okay,
but I think my relationship with, or the moral of the story of Jesus, I guess, to me, is that we all have a purpose, and that's God given, and then it's not our ego's decision to make. And the highest sacrifice you can make is what Jesus did.
yeah,
So, um, you could even, I mean, I would say sacrificing your own life. It's pretty much, and not in a suicidal way, but
No,
in a
but
brave,
for the
I'm
right
doing this for
reason.
you.
For the right reason, you would do that, to protect the right like, to protect someone. It brought me to a place where I never before thought that I could trust myself. Like, I did not trust myself.
Mhm.
I didn't think I knew anything. I started writing in a journal that week, and I was ecstatic for 5 to 7 days or so far from this. And, it was the first time I was like, "No, my life has value." And I realized all life had value, like, in that same moment, it was both, but that was actually the first time individually for me that I was like, "No, no, I actually have a reason for being." But I had not felt before. I'd always felt a lot of self-loathing and just
Mm.
wondering, like, "Well, this was a mistake, like,
Yeah.
and what am I supposed to do with this because it's not going anywhere and it's not worth anything." Definitely, like, I would like to be of value on paper. That's part of my insecurity is that I have no proof to anyone of my intelligence. I have not accomplished anything. I have nothing to show, you know? And so that's an insecurity of mine that, like, I don't think other people really even judge that harshly on that basis, but it's almost like a show me your papers thing in my mind where I'm like, "You don't have anything. You can't prove you can say you're smart, you can say you're this or that, but no one you can't prove that to anyone," you know?
Yeah. Well, I know, and I'm always trying to prove that to people. I have my website, which is like my portfolio, right? This is where I tell my story and say, I'm kind of explaining myself. And I know it's like I'm trying to really ride that line between the recognizing the insecurity that I want to explain myself. I want people to see my side of it because I'm afraid of like the judgment people have about the choices I've made with my life and the way that things have dead ended. Like I've done kind of an amazing array of things, but it's like dead ends. And I'm coming up on 40 and there's like, no, I am 40, but like I'm coming up on old and there's a new Neil
40 is a
Brennan.
good age.
It's, it's okay. I'm okay. It's like, it's just, no, I see the walls that I'm hitting now. I don't know.
I know
I'm,
what you mean. I'm about to turn 38 and it's not I never cared about age, but, I wish I had done more by now.
I'm using skin creams.
Oh,
I'm like
yeah,
really conscious of it now. And I got it. I actually, that's kind of part of my new life. I actually met somebody who makes this stuff, and
oh,
anyway,
that's
sorry.
convenient. That's nice.
Yeah, I don't like beauty products. I don't mean to get stuck on that. I'm losing my train of thought.
That's okay.
Um, the but there is a fact of getting older, and oh, Neil Brennan. I was going to talk about that. Have you heard of this comedian?
Yeah, he worked on the Dave Chappelle show
Yeah,
and stuff. Yeah.
he's huge, and he has a new special out, and it's very much about his existential issues, and I relate to him a lot in this. He's just like
I'll have
that.
to check that out. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, you might relate to it. It's just that dealing with that, like, oh my, that noisy inner dialogue that's just like, and not knowing and constantly feeling like you're handling social situations wrong all the time.
Yeah.
And then dealing, and then like just trying to find a partnership that makes sense in this frame of mind, and the what he mentions being 48 and he's a millionaire. He's 48 and single. People look at you like you're not trust, like you don't, people
Like,
don't
you fucked
trust
up.
you. There's something
Yeah,
wrong with you.
it's true.
And
Yeah,
I
that's how
feel
a lot
like
of people think of it.
that's the kind of judgment I'm running across now. And money, I see that women still very much value how much money you make, which I find, and I've been really thinking about that, and it doesn't make sense. It can't be the case anymore. That idea has to go completely out the window.
No.
It should not matter which partner makes more money, and no man should feel emasculated for making less than his wife. It's a simple numbers game. A
Yeah.
100 years ago, all the white collar jobs, all the blue collar jobs were going toward men, all of them.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the white collar jobs and management jobs, those are going to women.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then let's not even bring color into it. Okay. Just gender. Like, the fact is, the jobs aren't just, the men aren't going to hold the high paying jobs anymore. And there's a huge gap between labor jobs that only men do now. Still, there's these like shit paying labor jobs that only men are doing.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole area in the middle that now is mostly occupied by women.
Yeah.
That was occupied by men. So
And it's like a
it doesn't
low
make any sense to hold
middle
it
class
against a
income. Yeah.
man how much money he makes, as long as he's got a sensibility about finances and he can contribute to the household.
It doesn't make sense. And I'll tell you why. Maybe an example that might help you understand why women don't. No, I can't consider it that way because my dad didn't have money when I was younger. He was always a struggling handyman. He just went from job to job and he would scrape together enough money. And I can understand how stressful that was for my mom. But of course, my dad, you inherently admire your parents in a way that, so I could never judge a guy for not having good income. And then when I started working at 16, I always had an income. So I didn't care if he could buy me anything. I bought everything for myself already. So I didn't need a guy for that. So I was usually dating a guy that didn't have a car. I had a car, it's like, and unfortunate, and I'm not masculine, like I'm not an aggressive or masculine woman, but men don't like that dynamic typically. They don't like you to be above them in any way by their standards. I didn't think of it that way, so I wasn't looking down on the guy I was with, like, oh, he doesn't have a car or whatever.
You
It
know,
didn't even occur to me
you know
because it wasn't
Emily.
a problem to me.
You know Emily, right? The yoga teacher,
Yeah,
Emily on Twitter,
yeah,
the state of
yeah.
Emily.
She's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, she was on the show before. But
Oh,
she tweeted something before she followed me. Before I guess I was following her. Uh, but she tweeted something and I liked it. It inspired me. It gave me a little bit of hope. But she was wrong from the average. Here's what it was. It doesn't matter how much you make or what you've done. All we want to hear is what we can do together. Something like that, right? To make
that's
sense?
cool. Yeah.
That's what women really want, is what can we do together? And I
Mhm.
realized recently that's what Emily is like. And
Yeah.
that's unusual.
Right.
And
She's not every
that's
girl.
why she's
Yeah,
great.
she's not every woman. Yeah, that's
And I
true.
can't believe she's
She's
single.
unique.
And
I
if I
know.
was in LA, I would be interested. But uh but no, she's just because that she looks at
I
it that way. That's what I'm looking for. I want to build something together. And I used to be more obsessive, like we have to be like teammates, well, like actually
right.
on the same project. And that's the relationship that ended for me at the beginning of COVID. And that was even winding down for a year. So I totally get what you are going through when it comes to like thinking that you can consciously let go of the relationship. As long as you're hanging out and still having sex, it's still 100% in your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I've only recently tried to be more present with my emotions because I've always been able to compartmentalize and just like toss things aside and just go, that doesn't matter. And because what I need to do is this, and it would always be just keeping the relationship together was my main priority. It was like, I just didn't want to lose him, and so it didn't matter that everything in the relationship was terrible. I just didn't
Simping.
want it to end.
Somebody's simping. It sounds like it was you.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
was. I was totally his biggest fan. Like he explained to me his situation was really difficult and he had two ex-wives and a child with each, and neither of those women were super mentally healthy, and one of them harassed me throughout the relationship and would send me weird, bizarre messages, sometimes threatening messages, but mostly just things like, his daughter is not really his, and did it like just weird manipulations. And I can't believe you as a woman won't stand up and tell him to do this or that. I just never responded to her because she was obviously psychotic, and I like wanted nothing to do with it. And I had no reason to talk to her. But yeah, I all that I he didn't have an income really, so I encouraged him to start his own business because I was like, well, you could, if you have an idea, like I'll support you, and I've got the bills. If you could, if you can work on that, and he did. He got like an electric bike company going, where he actually made he made about three, I think. But what he did was he took mopeds from like the 70s, 80s, where they look cool. They have like an aesthetic and style to them. And he cut the engine off of them, and then he replaced it with an electric motor, and he made it an electric bike that had style, some style to it. And it wasn't a bad idea, but it's just you can't. I was being stupid too, and just thinking like, well, you can't profit off something. Like it's going to take a long time to really profit off
Yeah.
that.
Well,
And it's hard work and everything,
yeah.
but he did get enough money to buy himself a property in Pasco. He was pretty decent at this kind of stuff. So he bought a property, a lot in Pasco that was just a land, but it happened to be that the neighbor just next to it missed out on buying it and was like regretting not buying it because he wanted to expand his property. So the guy bought it from him, and then he took that money and he bought a little house in Oklahoma that needed to be remodeled, and he got it really cheap. And he basically, and then him and his son moved, and they moved out of my house into that house. So the relationship, it went from him having no future to him having a property and a place for him and his son to live. It was
That's
pretty good.
great.
Yeah.
But why
I was
couldn't it
devastated, but
why couldn't it work? Why couldn't it work? Yeah, you
he
don't have to
didn't
tell
love
me.
me. He didn't love me
Okay,
throughout the
okay,
relationship. He was just,
okay.
he was comforted by me. You know what
Well,
I mean? He cared about me. He loved me
you
as a
still care
person.
about you?
No, I mean, I doubt it. He
You
missed me
done?
later. He kind of wanted to rekindle it later, but he had ruined it. He had done so much. He had insulted me throughout the relationship
Mm-hmm,
about, on a romantic level that you can't take back. That's why I'm like, I'm
mm-hmm,
not sure that radical honesty is the best policy for people, because sometimes they tell you things that damage you, they scar
mm-hmm.
you for life.
I know.
You
I've
never
been
get.
that guy. I I'm the guy who ruined so many opportunities, relationships, and things in this narcissistic idea of honesty. It's not that they need to
Yeah,
hear it. It's that
there's a
it's that
limit to it.
somehow going to gratify me, and I'm not sure why. And I've in the period of grieving that I have gone through for all that I've done wrong to people, and not to mention to myself, over the last few years is incredibly intense. I would only wish it upon those who have the strength to go through it and to come out the others end. You got to have the strength to cry, be willing to cry,
Yeah.
and, and go through it. This year's been tough. I haven't had any new relationships. I've kind of ruined every good crush, or it never was there, and I
Yeah.
fantasized it.
Mhm.
And but at this point, I realize how silly that is, and it's like you just got to keep living and being your best. Keep being your best, looking your best, doing all that to like everything to continue being desirable,
Yeah.
um
Yeah,
and
be happy with
to enjoy
yourself.
yourself. Yeah, to enjoy yourself, to enjoy your existence and feel that you're on purpose with your life, that
Yeah.
like that's what. And my obsession with having my partner being directly involved with every damn little thing we did, I could actually live in a much different relationship now, to where so long as I feel secure with this
Yes.
person, I can let
If
go
there's
of. I
trust.
believe
Yeah.
I can let go of them quite a lot, and have our own sort of two different things happening, but here we meet, however often we meet. It's like, I
As
just
long as
realized how
there's
silly it
something
is.
consistent, like you can rely on it somewhat and you have trust with the
Yeah,
person, you can allow another person to be an individual, which is very important. Like they have to have their own point of view. It can't just be like, I was always half brained in my relationship. So, like, whenever I was in a relationship, I'd go to the grocery store. Anything I did was I was thinking mostly of the other person first. So I would go like, should I get anything for them? And then I would think about if I needed something. And that's okay. I mean, and I think that's kind of unavoidable, but there was something distinct about it for me where I was like, I really need to be able to learn how to take care of myself first and like you have that as a motivation because I've always been motivated by other people way more. So taking care of my parents as a priority would be above me, and then relationships would be above my needs as well. And I need to approach it differently because if I'm not happy, who's going to be happy with me? You know?
correct.
So, yeah,
And there's a certain fear of losing someone and losing a church, losing communities, friendships, groups where you're pressured to be a certain person. Um, that fear is a lack of faith for sure. And when you finally have that connection to God, the universe, whatever word you like, um, that deeper embedded purpose and reality that you're here for, then you can let go of these things. It's like, and I just don't see how you would put yourself through that kind of a relationship if you really have faith. Um,
true. Yeah.
s- you know,
Yeah,
so
I don't think I was not able to see um that all I could see was that like everyone suffers, you know? Like I was like, well, everyone suffers. So what's the difference? You know, I'm suffering, yeah, so what? Everyone suffers. It's not perfect, so what? You know, and that was kind of like instead of looking at the problems with my relationship, I just thought this is the best I can do. He's here, you know? And it wasn't even like I felt I was taking a concession. I really loved him a lot, you know? I loved that guy a lot. I wouldn't have done all that if I didn't passionately care about him and but I think the project of like I also had this thing where I was like, I have to help him rebuild his life. So I helped him get his license back and every that took up so much of my time and energy that uh, I I wasn't I wasn't often sitting analyzing the relationship. It was more like maybe at night I would go like, yeah, there's something wrong here. You know, right before I go to bed. That's like when it would hit me where I'd feel like crying or I might
mhm,
cry a little bit, you know, quietly and just go like, yeah, this is fucked up.
right. I
But
know
I
you
would
get so
ignore it the
involved
rest
with
of the time.
the mechanics of things, and sometimes you
Yeah.
realize in the middle of a terrible relationship or a terrible situation how fucked up it is and how you got yourself there, but you
Yes.
still
It was
have to
all my
get
fault.
through it.
Yeah.
You can't just lash out and make it
Yeah.
worse. Sometimes you just still have to get through it gracefully,
Yeah.
and we've gone over the hour. I try to make this an hour show, so I'm
Oh,
gonna
right on.
start
That's
closing it down.
sure.
Um,
Well, I know we meandered like it was all over the place, but it's been really interesting.
I
Yeah.
think,
This is only the second time I've been on a podcast, really. So
or not a podcast.
fun. Yeah.
I
Oh,
I
okay.
I
Not a
don't.
podcast. Excuse me.
Yeah, I know. I kind of have this built-in idea that this eventually will go off onto a different channel because I want to have a podcast because a podcast is very different and takes a lot more production to do it really
Okay.
well.
I gotcha.
And this
Yeah.
is just a nice little casual live stream.
Yeah.
Does
That's
not go
fun.
to RSS. It just sits on the social sites, YouTube and Twitter. Um,
I
and
want to
I'm
see the episode you did with Emily now.
Yeah,
watch
please.
that.
Yeah, please do. It's on my website, link in bio. Where do people find you? Zora at Zora ate me on Twitter, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I got. I don't have anything going on. I don't have any plans for I just random thoughts on
Uh,
there.
how before we go, how do you feel that you got like you did? I'm still at like 400 followers. I don't know how to get my followers just cranking. And you
Yeah.
don't seem to tweet obsessively either. Like, what do you suppose it is? Is it
I have tweeted obsessively at some
okay?
point. Like, if you look at how many tweets I've had for how long it's probably kind of a lot. But
Right.
there's been time. There's been times I've tweeted obsessively, but I think, you know, uh, a female on the internet is an advantage that I can't deny. Like that's got
I've
most.
seen, you know what though? I see some cool, totally hot chicks often that have about the same followers as me, and I go, okay, there's not like a
Yeah, I've seen that.
rule
Yeah,
that like I used to believe that if you just came and showed up some booty, you get like a bunch of
yeah.
followers, but it's not really the case. So I don't know what code it is that people crack.
Well, I noticed. I think it's because some people took kindness on me with this account. This is my second or well, it's my third account on
Mm.
Twitter. I had one prior, and I just was like, I wanted to uh, just refresh and start over. So I started this other account. And I think partially it's mutuals that, and Liberty Twitter itself is kind of, it's got a machine to it, like in itself, where it's like supporting of others. But a couple people took kindness on me, like Drakaina and Duality of Han or Mother Girth, like Johnny Hotcakes and the Friendly Cactus. Like those four people like
I
followed
love
me
these
like
are
kind
names. You
of
don't
kind of early on, and I think that was part of it. And I think pictures have to be part of it because every time I've posted a picture, that's when I get followers.
I know. Should I start doing selfies? Should I
Yeah,
start just
people like faces. So
God.
here's the thing is it's not so much like about attractiveness, I don't think. I
Honesty and
think it's
stuff.
about people like faces.
Vulnerability.
That we relate to, and we look for faces and everything. And then I think also there's this thing this is a personal belief and it's kind of a little goofy, but I think that people are starving for authenticity.
Yeah.
And that it's not so much that what you're saying is profound or important or true, even, but if it's something that, like, from the gut that you feel, I think that resonates with people well.
I think that's what it is. I think you have some thoughtful messages. I think that's the bottom line of why you've had success with that account. And uh that's where I'll leave it. I don't need to say anything else. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. That was fun. It was nice
Okay.
meeting you.
Great. All right, good. You don't have to leave if you don't want to. I'm just going to take you off the stream and say bye to
Bye.
everybody. Okay, bye-bye. Yeah. Play that music again. Have a little exit music. Okay, thank you, Zora. I really appreciated you being here. Check me out wherever you can find me. My name is all of my handles. I don't have fake handles or alternative pseudonymous stuff. Please support my businesses. Go to my value for value page on my .com and thank Zora yourself at Zora 8 me, the number 8 on Twitter. And she's probably responsible more for bringing people to my page today than I am to hers. Okay, thanks for joining me on another podcast, not a podcast show, live stream. Peace out. I love you.